So, I watched the Artemis Fowl movie yesterday, and I have to say, I have never, ever been so enraged watching a movie. I watched the movie Mother with an exclamation point after it, and I was miserable, and I thought it was the worst movie I ever had and ever would watch. But no, this topped that. This was the longest hour and 40 minutes I've ever had to endure. I I would rather have Butler beat the crap out of me than have to watch that movie again. So, when I was in fifth grade, I always read Harry Potter, and it got so bad that my school banned me from reading it again. So they were like, you need to look at other books. So I started reading the Artemis Fowl series, and I loved it. I love the Artemis Fowl series. I haven't read it in a few years now, but very good. Definitely would recommend. Gets a little bit boring towards the end of the series. I don't think I ever actually finished it because after the Eternity Code, I don't know, after the fifth one, the Time Paradox, I got too bored. But like, the first book was outstanding. It was a masterpiece. So I don't understand how Disney picked this series, which isn't even that big. Not a lot of people read it, you know? I mean, yes, it's bigger than a lot of series, but it's definitely not as big as Harry Potter. So I don't know why they picked this small series that has such an avid fan base and ruined it. And they had the author helping them on the project. Helping. My guess is that they proposed something to the author, and the author would be like, well, it's not how it went in the book. And they'd be like, well, you know, just a few little changes here and there. And from what I can tell, if they had even bothered to read the Wikipedia page, they would have been more accurate if they hadn't even read the books, but had only read the Wikipedia page. There's no excuse. There really isn't. I don't even care if you're like, well, it's a kid's movie. It didn't have to be. This wasn't a Disney Channel movie. This is a Disney movie. They dumbed down the plot. No, they didn't dumb down the plot. They got rid of the plot and replaced it with a bunch of random stuff. The troll attack is in the book, as is the whole time field, but they didn't even keep either of those accurate. So I recorded a review yesterday, but my computer died, and I was pretty furious because I had just finished it. So I've written down some notes, and I'm going to try to talk through the mistakes in it that I feel the most important to talk about, because really, I was writing down notes every second. Because every time I looked up, there was a mistake. So I have a lot written down, like a lot. So let's just get through this. So first of all, it opens showing you the house, and I'm gonna say that it's a big house. A house. It's not an estate. It's not a mansion. Honestly, it looks like some, like old money from the 1900s, but like not super rich. Just somebody who had like $30,000. I don't know. It's too small. It's a big house for an average person, but these people are billionaires, and they are old money, and this house it withheld, it's been through wars, it's been through battles. There are supposed to be walls on the outside of it, and that's very important, actually, because one of the things that the movie does is that in the very beginning, Mulch Diggums is talking about, he's going through all of Artemis's accomplishments. He's like, he's so smart, and then that's all you get. The movie tells you that he's smart, and they never show you that he's smart. Because honestly, I could have done any of the things that he did. Artemis in the books is always 3 steps ahead of them. And in this, I didn't see anything to suggest that he was that smart. He just seemed like an average kid. And that's the worst part, because he wasn't an average kid. This kid is genius, and he was far more mature than his age, and he could scare adults. This kid wouldn't scare anyone. This kid couldn't scare a 5-year-old. And I mean, no offense to the kid, he's a new actor. The acting in this movie wasn't good from anyone. They had the guy that plays Butler. I've seen him in other things, and he was good. And in this, he just, sucked. And honestly, I'm going to go ahead and say it's the script's fault. and not really the actor's faults, because this script is so poorly written that I just can't imagine why it took so long. Because I remember being upset about how long it was taking for them to actually release the movie, because they'd already put out trailers. And I still see no reason for it to have taken that long, because I feel like they wrote this script in one day. So, the thing about there being walls around the house, the reason that this is so important and that it shows how smart Artemis is that these 4 towers were perfect spots for the LEP to set up their time field. And Foley even says that in the books. He's like, this looks like it was made for this. Like, it's perfect. And he was suspicious of that. And the time field didn't even work the same way in the movie. I don't know what they thought they were doing with that whole, like, robot freaking drone thing, but that's not how it was. It was much more complicated than that. And they try to make it such like, ooh, high stakes, look how hard everyone's working. When in the books, really, it was a very complicated process that looked simple to everyone other than Foley, because he was pretty much the only one actually setting it up, him and his tech guys. So they made the actual thing look far too simple, and then show all of this, like, behind the scenes work and making it look far more complicated than it would have actually looked in the books. So I found that pretty irritating. And even more irritating than that was when Artemis is out there with a gun, which he never would have done in the book. I'll get to that. And he shoots the drone thing, and it screws up the time field so that they only have like a half an hour. The time fields lasted for 8 hours. And that's not how it worked. You couldn't just shoot it and screw up the entire thing. And more than that, Artemis didn't want to do that, because he wanted the time to make sure everything went right. So it's just, they couldn't even start the movie right. This whole thing with Mulch being the narrator was stupid. Why was he the narrator? Why was he caught by human police? I know that he says that Artemis set it up so he'd be caught and then he gets him out, but that didn't happen. And Mulch was supposed to be dead by the end of the book. He escaped and got away with a bunch of gold. But the gold wasn't in the movie, so I suppose that wouldn't work now, would it? But no, Mulch's character still would have found a way to escape, and I find it atrocious that they have him partnering up with Artemis to protect him, which he wouldn't have. He literally broke into his house to try to help the LEP get rid of him. Like, and then they can't even keep his narration consistent, because he's supposed to be talking to some interrogator, but then later on in the movie, he's saying, like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, and who are these ladies and gentlemen you're talking to? Because as far as I know, it's only one interrogator. So why are you acting like you're narrating a movie? Because you're not. I feel like that's a very amateur mistake to make. You can't even keep your narration consistent. So. Now, he starts... Okay, why does Mulch look so human? Because before the movie got released, they had all of these, like, teasers, and, like, the people in it were like, ooh, behind the scenes. And I remember Jack Black posting a picture of himself in the makeup, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, that actually looks great. Like, wow. That's not how he looked in the movie. What was the point? He literally looked like a human. Oh, and then they write in this stuff about, like, I'm a giant dwarf. Why did they have to add that? They could have used CGI to just make him shorter. Or they could have hired a shorter actor. They didn't have to have Jack Black. I mean, they went for a new kid on the main character, so they did not have to have a well-known actor to play Mulch. So I thought it was stupid. He was not a giant dwarf in the book. It was so unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. And Mulch starts talking about this aculus. What is an aculus? I don't think they ever, like, even really described what it did in the movie. It was never in the books. And I still don't understand what it even does, because they use it, but is that what it's supposed to be used for? Like, I don't get it. How is it the most dangerous tool? Just shut up. Gosh. Artemis was trying... No, I'll get to that when I talk about his father. So I wrote down, acting sucks, writing sucks. Why was Artemis surfing? Why was Artemis surfing? They couldn't even keep his character the same. They couldn't keep the main character the same. Artemis was very non-athletic. That's mentioned several times. He couldn't even run up his own stairs without becoming winded. Why was he surfing? Why is he out there shooting a gun? He doesn't know how to do that. He could hardly even punch anyone. And you have him out there on the front lines as if Artemis would ever do that. It was unnecessary change. Honestly, it added nothing. Do they feel like you have to have a, physically talented main character? Because you don't. You really don't. It's okay for them to be a genius. He's 11. It's impressive enough for an 11-year-old to be as smart as he's supposed to be. Somebody just looked in here. He smiles too much. Artemis didn't smile. Artemis was sociopathic, honestly. Charismatic, yes, but he didn't show emotions very much. So I found that pretty stupid. His mom being dead in the movie, it takes away from Artemis's character, honestly. It takes away from his character, and it's yet another reason that you can't tell that he's as smart as he's supposed to be, because in the books, his mother is alive, and his father has been missing for a while. He did not just get abducted, but whatever. So his mother is actually schizophrenic and bipolar, and she suffers hallucinations of his father returning home. And she had renovated her husband and hers lounge in the attic to be her bedroom. And, she couldn't even tell half the time what was happening. And this was important to Artemis's character because, first of all, throughout the series, you get to see him gradually grow more attached to his mother, because in the first book, it's explained that even though he used a wish from Holly to heal his mother, he didn't actually care. He just didn't want CPS to look into them. So it takes away from his character being as And then another part is that Artemis knew how to get out of a time field, which is supposed to be something that you couldn't do. But Artemis figured it out. And he figured it out using his mother. And this wasn't even a thing in the movie. And once again, it just takes away from how smart he's supposed to be. So, I tried to watch this movie when it was released, actually. And I couldn't, because, 10 minutes into it, Butler tells him to go get dressed, which Butler would never do, because Butler knows he's not his boss. But then Artemis comes down wearing jeans. Why? Was it to make him more relatable? He's not supposed to be relatable. It was so pointless. There was no reason for it. So, now, it says that it says his father was a dealer of antiques. No, he wasn't. At all. I think that they changed this because they want Artemis to be a hero, which he's not. Honestly, if you ask me, in the first book, Artemis was the antagonist. The main character, yes, but antagonist. He's the one that caused all the problems. He started it. He is extremely morally gray, so I don't know why they thought they had to make him into a hero. In the books, the Fowls actually have been a criminal legacy or criminal dynasty since the Norman Crusades or something. So yeah, I found it really freaking stupid. Now, forgive me, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, but at some point, his father describes the fairies as being the Tuatha Dé Danann. And they're not. They're just not. The Tuatha Dé Danann were actually part of Celtic folklore and is something that some people still worship. So why can't they just keep them as fairies like every other movie does? And that's the other thing, is they refer to them as fairies, not fae, which is what the Tuatha were. And these fairies don't even have half of the powers that the Tuatha did. So, I don't know. That's a smaller detail that a lot of people wouldn't have noticed, but I did, and I didn't like it. So, ew, they call him Artie, which he hated, actually. So that was really stupid. And they made him into a dweeb, which he wasn't. Yeah, he was smart, but that doesn't mean that he's a dweeb. Like, he has this freaking nerdy alarm clock that was unnecessary. And another thing is, honestly, I didn't mind the casting that much, but they gave Butler the. So I don't like how I worded something right here, so I'm gonna reword it. Meet my kitten. So I love the guy that they cast as Butler, honestly, because he has the same physique that I've always imagined Butler having, and it's pretty close to what he had in the comics. What I was saying is that I hate his contacts. These like bright blue eyes. He looked weird. He looked like a robot. What I was saying is I found it dumb for them to keep him with the like really light blonde hair and blue eyes. First of all, Butler's eyes weren't even bright blue. They were like a really deep blue, and they were even described as almost being black. He could have pulled that off, but that's not the point. The point is that these colors, these features, weren't important. Though he had those because he's Eurasian. That those are just common colors for him. You know? Like, it's pretty common to see a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes. So I don't understand why they felt the need to keep that if they weren't important. They could have just kept him with his natural hair color and eye color because that's how it should have been. I just don't get it. I thought it was dumb. And then when they're introducing Butler, they're like, don't ever call him the Butler. You could call him Dom or Dom of White. No, you couldn't. Don't call him the Butler. No, but you call him Butler because that's what he goes by. It's actually against Butler's bodyguard training to tell his employer his first name. So we don't even learn what his first name is until like the third book. So I don't know why they put that in. And having Artemis in the kitchen getting his own food, I don't know. I thought that was weird. He wouldn't have done that. So they have Artemis Sr. getting abducted on a yacht, which he wasn't. Actually, Artemis Sr. he was going to Russia for business, and his ship got bombed by the Russian mafia, and then he got abducted by them. And that doesn't even come into play until the second book. Like, he has no role in the first book other than like, oh, Artemis is depressed. And they just felt like they had to add him in, and they didn't. So having the fairies kidnap him, and more than fairy, no. They have Opal Kaboy kidnap him. She's not even introduced until the second book. And I don't know why it was so important for her. It's been a while. But they mention many, many times. They make sure that you know that Opal was very pretty. And they have her some, like, disgusting hag in a cloak. You can't even see her face. Why does she sound like that? It's so stupid. And the fairies had never had contact with the Fowls until Artemis Jr. initiated it. So they whitewashed Holly. Holly was like described as having dark nut skin. So why did they make her white? It doesn't make sense. And then the LEP uniforms, I felt like they were pretty ugly, and Holly specifically says that they're not ugly anymore, so I don't know, but this is a pretty subjective thing, I guess. They made the goblins dress like British thugs, which I thought was stupid. It was weird. Why did they have to look like that? It made me uncomfortable, honestly. And Holly looks like a child. Did they cast a child? Because she looks like a child, and I don't think she should look like a child. Sure, yes, but she's like 80 years old, and yes, that's young for a fairy, but still not a child. And she's way too friendly, and she's not at all as tough as she was in the books. Like, she's literally, like, joking with criminals. So that's weird. And this made me mad. I seen it in the trailers, and I got so freaking mad. They made Root a woman. It's vital to his role in the story that he's a man, because he's hard on Holly because she's the first woman to make it that far in the LEP. So why did they make him a man? They didn't have to. They could have casted a guy. There are plenty of female characters. Is it because they wanted a tough female character? They could have kept Holly as tough. They could have kept Juliet as being a bodyguard, which they didn't. Instead, they make her the same age as Artemis, which she wasn't. She was a teenager. And they make her a total nerd, which she wasn't. She was into, like, boxing. She was a total meathead. But she was also very pretty, and they didn't keep that either. I mean, the girl is pretty, but Juliet was very focused on her looks. It was, like, one of her favorite things about herself. She was very superficial. So I don't understand why they thought they had to have... Is that why they chose a woman to have, like, a tough female character? Because it wasn't necessary. It took away from Holly's character. But, like, she acts like she's got, like, a really sore back. And, yeah, Root was old, but, like, he was still strong. He didn't, like, walk with a cane or anything. He was just kind of fat. But, like, I just don't understand why she walked like that. It just makes her look weak. And they didn't even make her face red, which was another thing that was mentioned very often in the books, was that he even had the nickname Beetroot because his face was so red. And she's never smoking a cigar, which Root did, and that might be because this is a kid's movie, but, like, they have guns. Why can't she have a fungus cigar, which is what Root smoked? She never picks on Holly, really. She's very encouraging to Holly. Like, so they couldn't even keep the relationship between the two characters the same. Root was very hard on Holly because he had such high expectations for her. Having Juliet brought in as Butler's cousin when she's his little sister, I thought that was really stupid. There was no reason for it. Artemis whines all the time, which he didn't in the books. And he talks about his feelings to the Butler family, which he never would have. Foley isn't even paranoid, and really, I didn't see much sarcasm from him, which was another vital part of his character. In the books, Foley wears a tinfoil hat because he's scared of people reading his mind, so why'd they get rid of it? Why did they get rid of it? It's so stupid. They have Holly as scared to go up in one of those shuttle things in the magma, which Holly was, like, first in her class in flying those, but they didn't have her flying it. They just had it as, like, automated, which was another unnecessary change. She yells a lot when she gets above ground because she's so happy, which she wouldn't have done because she's not stupid. Artemis goes out without Butler, which he wouldn't have done because Butler is his bodyguard assigned from birth, which is another thing they changed because Butler was the only one in the household, and with 3 Fowls in the household, there would have been 3 Butler members. So I don't get it. So there's another thing where Mulch is, like, I don't even understand his character in the movie. He's helpful. Like, he's still a criminal, but he's helpful, which he wasn't. In the movie, Mulch kills a bunny so that he can escape, and he puts his contact that was in an eye in the bunny's eye so that it shows the LEP that he's dying, so then he's, like, legally dead, and they stop looking for him. So I thought it was another dumb change to a character that just took away from the plot. Butler said a lot of things that were unnecessary for him to say, which Butler wouldn't have. He was pretty quiet. He only ever said things that needed to be said. The troll attacked an outdoor wedding instead of a restaurant, which is a small thing, I guess, but, like, still an unnecessary change. And another cool part about having him attack the restaurant is that then when they clean up what happened, it shows how advanced the LEP's technology is because they're able to fix an entire wall, or at least make it look fixed, with some technology they have. So I felt like it's just, once again, they tell us that these people have these qualities, and then they never show us them having those qualities. The troll is, like, actually, actually hurting people at that wedding, which didn't happen. And Holly got in a lot of trouble when she went in there, which she didn't in the movie. They got rid of a lot of stuff, and then they added in a lot of completely unnecessary stuff, and it was just so stupid. This whole thing with Beechwood, Holly's dad, which, like, was never mentioned in any of the books. What was the point? Because he's the one that gives them the Oculus, which shouldn't even be in the movie, because that's not a thing. They're wearing camo when they're looking for a fairy, which they weren't in the books, because Artemis actually, like, invented this totally whack tent thing where, like, you can't even detect it. I get that might be hard to do in the movies, but you still could have had them doing something more high-tech than wearing camo. So found that pretty freaking stupid. They have Holly in a cage in the kitchen instead of in a cell that was made for her. I don't understand why. And then they have her and Artemis, like, totally friendly. Ew, and he even goes, like, can I trust you? And then he takes off his glasses. Why? 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 It's so dumb. That never happened. It never would have happened if they kept people's characters the same. I feel like this movie is only good to people who never read the books, and mostly people that watched the movie read the books, because the trailers weren't even good. It looked stupid. I don't know why anybody would watch it if they didn't read the books. So, I just thought the whole movie was stupid. They changed everybody's characters. They didn't keep anything in the movie the same as the books. And the whole thing with the time freeze was infuriating. It was just another thing to speed up the plot, but then they realized that they had too much time left, so then they added more stuff because they forgot that they put Opal in the movie, so then they cut back to her at the very end, even though she hasn't contributed anything to the plot other than kidnapping his father, who should not have been in the movie. Gosh, I was very angry the entire time I was watching this. They turned off Holly's magic with technology, which isn't a thing. It's not a thing. They got rid of the bio bomb, which was pretty important. It was yet another thing that was showing how smart Artemis was, and it was showing how advanced fairy technology was, and they got rid of it. Because what's the point in keeping things consistent? You know, why adapt a book to a movie and then just, like, keep everything the same as the book? Nobody wants that. Who would watch that? Holly recites the intro to the book that, not the book, but the fairies have this book, which is, like, their holy text in the book. And she, like, recites the intro to the fairy book for the Oculus, which was dumb. I feel like if they even know that that's a thing, then why didn't they include the book as still being a thing? Because in the trailers, they show Artemis doing that whole scene in the alleyway, some other country, where he restores a fairy's magic, and that's not even in the movie. So everybody's too emotional. Artemis is driving a helicopter instead of Butler, which was unnecessary. Butler is there. I don't doubt that Artemis could drive a helicopter, but why would he? Because Butler was right there. I don't understand why they had Artemis driving the helicopter, because neither him nor his dad should have been driving it, but, like, it would have made more sense for his dad to be driving it instead of a literal 11-year-old. That's illegal. So, and they didn't let the Fowls have a criminal history, so then why is Artemis committing a crime suddenly? Oh, something that really at the end of the movie, Artemis says that he's a criminal mastermind. Since when? What crime did you commit? I didn't see a crime. You just played by the rules. I did not see any crime. You didn't even keep the history of the Fowls having a criminal history, so why are you a criminal mastermind? And since when are you a mastermind? What did you do that was so genius, other than what we were told? I didn't see anything. I saw you crying. I saw you whining and hugging people and befriending somebody that you kidnapped, which, like, where's the genius? Because you can't just say at the end of the movie that you're a criminal genius when you never showed that you were a criminal nor a mastermind. So I feel like the people who wrote this just wanted to be like, yeah, see, we kept him the same. He's a criminal mastermind. even though he wasn't a criminal mastermind at all in this movie. All in all, this movie sucked. I feel like it's a hate crime. Obviously, I'm kidding. But, oh gosh, I would not recommend it at all. Even if you never read the books, I wouldn't recommend it because it's poorly written. The plot sucks. It doesn't make sense. They don't explain any of the mechanics. As I said before, Opal is in the beginning, and she's supposed to be the main antagonist, but then she doesn't show up again until the very end, and she literally doesn't do anything other than basically say, oh, and I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you pesky 11-year-olds. So, even if it wasn't, like, even if it didn't have base material that it strayed from, it's still not a good movie. The quality sucks, the writing sucked. It just... I wish I could get my time back. I wish that I could erase from my memory that this movie exists. Because I'm a little angry just thinking about it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you've read the books, feel free to comment anything I might have missed. As I said before, I was writing the entire time I watched it. So there's a very good chance that I missed many other mistakes because there's probably about 3 mistakes per 5 seconds. So, yeah. Bye.